So my project is called Jargonauts, and it's a project on the readability of biosecurity literature. So many studies have proven that the readability of scientific literature is decreasing over time. This presents serious problems as it impedes the dissemination of scientific research and increases the risks of misinterpretation. This project aims to assess the readability of biosecurity literature, an area that has not yet been studied. We used 363 abstracts from the journal Biological Invasions, a major international biosecurity journal. Abstracts are chosen because they were easier to process, and abstract readability has been strongly linked to paper readability. 20 abstracts were selected per year from 2001 to 2020. This dataset was used for all of the analyses, bar those involving citations. For these, only abstracts and titles from 2010 were used to offset the fact that abstracts published more recently will have had less opportunity to be cited. 7 readability indices were calculated to measure the readability of the abstracts. This presentation will be focusing on only 2, the average reading grade level and the flesh reading ease. The graph shows the changes in these 2 indices over time. The average reading grade level is the average of 5 different indices, and so reflects the general trend. It approximates the US grade level necessary to read a text, so the increase you can see on the graph indicates that the texts are becoming more difficult to read over time. To give some perspective, the average reader has a grade level of approximately 8, far below our average values. The flesh reading ease is quite different, and gives a readability score between 1 and 100. Lower scores indicate that the text is harder to read, so looking at the graph, we can see that this indice also demonstrates that readability has fallen over time. Normally, a score of 0 to 30 means that the text is very difficult to read and can only be properly understood by university graduates. You'll note that our average scores never rise above 30. We then group the data by subject, with the abstracts divided by the type of organism studied. Was it aquatic or a terrestrial plant, and so on. As you can see in the top graph, there was a large amount of variation in the average reading grade level and flesh reading ease between the organisms studied. This variation was proven as significant by an ANOVA. We found that the hardest to read papers were on animals, as they had the lowest average reading grade level and highest flesh reading ease. The easiest to read papers were those in the other category. This encompassed all the less studied organisms, such as microbes and fungi. We also found that abstracts written by authors from countries where English is the official language were less readable than those written by authors from countries where English is not the official language. Their average reading grade level was 0.6 points higher, of a low p-value, indicating that this difference is statistically significant. Their flesh reading ease was also significantly different, by 5.9 points. We found that this was because these abstracts tended to use more technical words, with more characters or syllables. As the number of citations increased, there was no significant change in the abstract average reading grade level or flesh reading ease. So it appears that low readability doesn't deter paper publishing academics. Despite this, it should be kept in mind that the number of citations is not necessarily representative of the impact of a paper. Journal articles are also read by non-citers, like other professionals in the public, who may avoid or accidentally misinterpret difficult papers. Sadly, the title readability also showed no relationship with the number of citations. In summary, the readability of biosecurity papers has decreased over time. As this trend is not linked to a decrease in citations, there looks to be little incentive for authors to change. This is a very worrying sign. When I was analysing abstracts for this project, I found myself much more willing to engage with articles when the titles caught my attention and the abstracts were easy to read. If this is the instinctive response of someone with a scientific background, what might the response of a journalist or teacher be? Though the issue of readability is often neglected, I think that it's a problem we should all give some more thought to. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Hazel. Questions for Hazel?
Just to
Yeah,
clarify,
John? Yeah.
So readability was from the point of view of a layperson or a non-scientist?
So the readability indices calculated the readability in terms of the US grade level, mostly. So it just determined the general grade level. And on average, you want a low grade level so that the public can read it.
The values were age, so average. The average, I think what the average was about 16 or 17 was it for some of the abstracts. Yeah, is that right, Hazel? So as opposed to the average reading age in the state, which is 8, and often people would say 12 is the age we should be aiming for, right? So, yeah.
I have a question. Hazel, how did you measure these scores? Did you use the simple tool in Word, or did you use the algorithms that are provided for each?
I used the different algorithms and formulas for each indices. I used online tools.
Okay, great, thanks. Great paper, by the way.
Thank you.